The night sky above Earth had always been filled with stars, but this night was different. The first signs came quietly, reports of strange lights moving in formation over the Pacific, captured by fishing boats and satellites. At first, governments dismissed it as debris or secret tests. But the truth could not be hidden for long. Millions of people across the world looked up and saw the same thing. Lines of enormous shadows sliding across the heavens, blotting out the constellations themselves. They were not meteors. They were not natural. They moved with purpose, and every second they drew closer to Earth. Inside control rooms across the planet, alarms screamed. Generals, scientists, and politicians stared at their screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. Humanity had always asked whether life existed beyond Earth, but no one was ready for the answer to arrive like this. The objects were not only ships, they were warships, the size of mountains, gliding effortlessly through orbit. Their armor gleamed black, their outlines sharp and cruel, like predators drifting above their prey. The world suddenly felt smaller, fragile, as if crushed beneath the weight of something vast and merciless. The aliens had chosen no words of greeting, no signals of peace. They did not ask to speak or to share knowledge. They simply positioned themselves over Earth, like conquerors taking their first step onto a battlefield they already believed was won. For them, Earth was nothing more than another prize to collect, another weak world to bend beneath their rule. For centuries their empire had swallowed planets whole, burning away resistance as if it were nothing. To their commanders, humanity looked divided, primitive, and unworthy of respect. They had no idea what awaited them. Down below, panic spread faster than fire. Streets filled with people pointing, recording, screaming as the massive shapes slid across the sky. Rumors spread across the internet. Some swore the end of the world had come, others begged for their leaders to surrender before it was too late. Yet in hidden rooms deep underground, the true leaders of Earth gathered. Old rivalries and bitter politics no longer mattered. In the face of such power, survival was the only concern. Across a dozen languages and nations, they spoke the same truth: this was an invasion. Still, humanity was not as weak as the invaders believed. Quietly, secret defenses stirred to life. Old satellites once thought broken reawakened, broadcasting coded signals. Underground bunkers opened, revealing weapons that had been hidden for decades, waiting for this very day. Humanity had always feared being alone in the universe, but they had also feared what might come knocking. Preparations had been made, though few outside the highest circles ever knew. The aliens would soon learn that Earth was not a prize to be taken without cost. But the first move belonged to the invaders. From one of the colossal ships, a burning spear of light ripped downward, striking an uninhabited desert. The explosion was blinding, shaking the ground for miles. The message was clear: surrender, or the next strike would not fall on empty land. Cities trembled in silence as the ultimatum spread without words. Humanity waited, holding its breath, as governments rushed to decide whether to kneel or resist. In New York, a little girl clutched her mother's hand, staring upward at the glowing outline of a ship covering half the sky. In Beijing, crowds pressed against each other, watching the stars vanish behind a wall of metal. In small towns and lonely fields, farmers, soldiers, teachers, and workers felt the same weight in their chests. For the first time in history, every human being looked at the same threat, and every human being knew the choice ahead. The planet itself seemed to whisper, "Will we fight, or will we fall?" The invaders sent no words, no ambassadors, no demands. They believed Earth would crumble on its own, terrified by their presence. To them, this was routine, a small step in the endless march of their empire. But in their arrogance, they had already made their first mistake. They had underestimated the stubborn fire that lived in the human heart, the will that had carried humanity through endless wars, disasters, and suffering. These new conquerors had no idea what it meant to push a species that refused to break. In a silent command bunker beneath the Rockies, the president of Earth's United Council looked at the generals gathered around her. Her voice was calm but heavy with steel. "We will not surrender. They think we are afraid. They think we are weak. But they will learn." Orders were given, codes unlocked, fleets awakened from hidden vaults. Across the seas, submarines adjusted their positions. In the skies, hidden stations powered up. Earth was preparing for war, even as fear tightened around every heart. And yet, no one truly knew if it would be enough. The alien ships were vast, ancient, and armed with weapons beyond imagination. Humanity's technology was fierce, but compared to the empire above, it seemed like stone tools against fire. Still, humanity had one advantage the aliens had never faced before: unpredictability. Humans fought with passion, with desperation, with cunning that no empire could predict. And when their survival was on the line, they would fight to the very last breath. Above, the alien fleet slowly adjusted, preparing to strike again. On Earth, every eye turned upward. The stage was set. The universe itself seemed to hold still, waiting for the first spark that would ignite the war. The aliens had come to claim Earth as an easy victory. Instead, they had walked into the jaws of a storm. The alien fleet did not wait long. Within hours of their arrival, beams of light lashed down upon Earth, striking military bases, communications towers, and orbital satellites. Each strike was precise, cold, and devastating. It was not a battle, it was a demonstration. They wanted humanity to see how helpless it was, to feel the weight of terror before being asked to kneel. Cities trembled under the glow of alien fire, and across the planet, fear spread like a shadow stretching over every home. But even as explosions thundered across the deserts, mountains, and seas, resistance was already moving. Humanity had always prepared for its darkest day, even if no one believed it would truly come. Beneath the oceans, submarines surfaced silently, their crews grim and ready. Deep inside bunkers, commanders gave orders with steady hands. Hidden satellites activated secret codes, linking ships and weapons long believed to be retired. Humanity was not united in many things, but on this day, every soldier, every pilot, and every leader carried the same thought: Earth must not fall. The first act of resistance came not from the great powers, but from a small base hidden in the deserts of Nevada. It was built decades earlier, designed for a war that never came, stocked with weapons that had never been used. Now, its silence ended. From its underground launch bays, 3 sleek fighters roared upward, engines screaming against the night. Their mission was simple: test the enemy. The pilots knew they might never return, but their courage carried them higher, past the atmosphere, toward the dark silhouettes blotting out the stars. The alien ships detected them instantly. Their sensors saw everything, their weapons capable of burning entire cities. Yet instead of immediate destruction, the invaders hesitated. They wanted to study the humans, to measure their resistance before crushing it. To the Empire, these tiny fighters were insects, harmless, pathetic, unworthy of fear. But insects can sting. The 3 pilots flew in a tight formation, climbing higher and higher, until the first alien warship loomed before them like a black mountain. Its surface gleamed with shifting armor, its weapons glowing faintly. The pilots exchanged one last wordless glance through their comms. Then they attacked. Missiles tore through space, streaking toward the alien vessel. Explosions flared against its shields, harmless but bright, a defiant punch against the dark. The aliens responded with a beam of searing white light, faster than the eye could follow. One of the fighters vanished in an instant, leaving nothing but fragments drifting in the void. The other 2 twisted violently, dodging death by inches. Their hearts raced, but they pressed on, diving close to the enemy hull. There, where the warship's armor shifted and bent, one pilot found his chance. He released a cluster of experimental weapons, small, fast, designed to burrow deep. They struck the alien plating, digging into the seams. For the first time, the Empire's warship shuddered. A blast ripped across its outer shell, leaving scars where no weapon had ever left a mark before. It was not victory, but it was something far more dangerous to the aliens: proof that humans could fight back. The warship's response was immediate and merciless. Another beam cut across the darkness, swallowing the second fighter. The last pilot, alone now, pushed his ship to its limits, diving, rolling, and burning every ounce of fuel just to survive. He screamed defiance into the void as his weapons struck again, leaving another scar across the giant's armor. The alien warship turned fully toward him, preparing the final strike. In that moment, his comms captured his last words. "Tell them, we can hurt them." Then the beam fired, and silence returned. On Earth, the signal reached command centers across the globe. Humanity's first fighters were gone, but their sacrifice carried more weight than their lives. They had proven the impossible. The Empire was not untouchable. Their armor could bleed. Their weapons could be resisted. That single truth lit a fire in every human heart. They were not hopeless. They were not powerless. They could fight. The aliens, however, saw it differently. To them, this was not fear. It was insult. No species had ever dared scratch their warships and lived. No primitive race had ever drawn blood from their machines. The commanders of the fleet sent out a new order. Earth would not simply be conquered. It would be punished. The next wave came with brutal force. Entire cities were targeted, their power grids and communication hubs ripped apart. Towers of flame rose across the globe, and humanity's screams echoed across the night. Yet even in the chaos, humanity did not surrender. Fighter squadrons scrambled into the skies. Anti-air defenses opened fire. Naval fleets moved into position, launching missiles into the dark heavens. Most were destroyed before reaching their targets, but some found their mark, flashing against alien hulls. For every human life lost, the fire of resistance only grew hotter. In London, civilians crowded into shelters as fighter pilots soared above them, refusing to abandon the skies. In Cairo, soldiers fired everything they had into the heavens, shouting curses at the shadows blotting out the stars. In South America, whole towns lit up their mountains and fields, signaling to the invaders with defiant flames, "We are still here. We will not bow." The war had only just begun, but already the Empire understood one truth: this conquest would not be easy. Earth was unlike any world they had taken before. Its people were chaotic, divided, and unrefined, but when united by survival, they became something fierce, something unpredictable, something terrifying. As the smoke of burning cities rose into the sky, humanity's leaders gathered once again. The first battle had cost them dearly, but it had also given them hope. The message of the lone pilot echoed in their minds. "We can hurt them." That truth became their shield, their sword, and their vow. The alien fleet prepared to tighten its grip, but Earth was no longer trembling. Earth was awakening. The alien empire was not used to resistance. For centuries, their fleets had swept across countless worlds, crushing opposition before it could rise. Civilizations fell within days, their voices silenced under the shadow of warships so massive they blocked entire skies. But Earth had changed the pattern. A handful of fragile human fighters had left scars upon a vessel that should have been untouchable. The Empire was not afraid, but it was furious. To them, this was no longer a conquest. It was an insult to their power. Orders were sent across the fleet. Every city of significance, every stronghold of human defense, every symbol of human defiance was to be burned. The humans had shown their teeth. Now their world would feel the weight of a crushing fist. It began with the skies. Above New York, a ship the size of a mountain descended, blotting out the morning sun. Its weapons hummed with a deep, dreadful energy before unleashing a storm of light that tore through skyscrapers like paper. Entire blocks collapsed in seconds, fire climbing into the heavens. Millions fled through the streets, their screams lost under the roar of destruction. Yet even as the city burned, the American military scrambled jets into the sky, knowing they could not match the power above them. They fought anyway. Missiles streaked upward, striking the alien shields with bursts of flame. They left only faint ripples against the armor, but each shot was a reminder: humanity would not go quietly. Across the ocean, in Europe, ancient capitals shuddered under the alien storm. In Paris, monuments that had stood for centuries crumbled into dust. In Berlin, soldiers launched everything they had: rockets, drones, even outdated tanks turned skyward in desperation. Some weapons failed, others struck true, leaving sparks across the alien hulls. The Empire ignored the damage. To them, This was nothing more than the buzzing of flies. But to humanity, every spark was a message carried through the smoke. We are still here. The Empire's commanders watched the resistance closely. They did not fear it, but they studied it with cold interest. Unlike other conquered species, the humans did not scatter in panic. They fought in every city, every hill, every ocean. They adapted quickly, their tactics changing within hours. When one weapon failed, they tried another. When their fleets were crushed, they struck from the ground. This unpredictability unsettled the alien leaders, though none would dare speak it aloud. For the first time in generations, the Empire found itself engaged in a war that was not finished in a single night. The fiercest resistance rose from unexpected places. In the mountains of South America, guerrilla fighters launched missiles from hidden caves, striking alien patrol craft. In Africa, soldiers and civilians together dragged old artillery pieces into the deserts, firing shells that echoed across the sands. In Asia, hidden bases long thought abandoned came alive with fire, launching rockets into the heavens. The Empire swatted them down, but every battle cost them time, and in war, time was dangerous. For deep beneath Earth's surface, in bunkers unknown even to most governments, something was stirring. Weapons built in secret programs, projects dismissed as too expensive, too experimental, too dangerous, were now being prepared. Generals spoke in hushed voices of railguns that could pierce armor, of drones guided by artificial minds, of warheads that could bend physics itself. Humanity's true strength was not in its cities or its armies. It was in its ability to innovate, to adapt, to surprise. The Empire had not yet seen the full power of Earth. Still, the cost was terrible. In a single week, billions were displaced. Cities burned across continents. Families were torn apart by the thunder of alien fire. Humanity fought with courage, but courage alone could not stop the Empire's overwhelming might. Entire fleets of warships patrolled the skies, their shadows stretching across oceans. Where resistance grew strongest, alien commanders unleashed their deadliest weapons, dark beams that melted steel and turned stone to ash. The earth shook under their fury. And yet, through the ashes, stories of defiance spread. In New York, a group of firefighters saved hundreds by holding a collapsing bridge long enough for civilians to cross. In Tokyo, pilots rammed their dying jets into enemy ships, causing explosions that lit the night. In Cairo, soldiers fought with nothing but rifles, climbing burning wreckage to fire directly at alien patrols. Their actions echoed across the world, giving people hope. The Empire could destroy buildings, but it could not destroy the human spirit. Among the alien fleet, cracks of doubt began to form. The lower ranks, the pilots, the technicians, the soldiers who carried out the Empire's orders, whispered uneasily. They had crushed hundreds of civilizations before, yet none had fought like this. None had inflicted pain upon their masters. None had shown such unity in the face of certain death. The humans were not simply another primitive species. They were something else, something the Empire had never faced before. In the heart of the Empire's command vessel, the Supreme Commander studied Earth from orbit. His eyes, cold and ancient, narrowed as he reviewed reports of damage. The scars on their ships, though minor, burned into his pride. He saw a dangerous truth emerging. If left unchecked, these humans could become more than a nuisance. They could become a threat. And threats to the Empire were always eliminated completely. So he issued a decree that silenced the command decks. Earth would not be conquered and enslaved like the others. It would be broken. Its armies crushed, its cities leveled, its very surface scarred beyond repair. The humans would be erased from history, their defiance remembered only as a warning to other worlds. The order was simple and merciless. Prepare the planet killer. Hidden deep within the fleet was a weapon never before used on Earth-like worlds. It was vast, ancient, built to shatter planets whose resistance was too costly. Its power could split the crust of a world, boil its oceans, and turn continents into molten glass. The Supreme Commander planned to unleash it not just to win, but to send a message across the galaxy. No species, no matter how stubborn, could defy the Empire. But as preparations began, A signal stirred in the shadows of Earth's defense networks. It was faint, scrambled, nearly lost in the chaos of destroyed satellites, but it carried across the stars. A desperate call for help, broadcast into the void. Humanity had never been alone in the galaxy, and now their message screamed to anyone listening: Earth is under attack. If you can hear us, we fight, but we may not survive. The Empire was ready to crush Earth forever. Humanity was ready to fight until its last breath. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of the fleet, something was listening. The first week of invasion had nearly broken the planet. Cities lay in ruins, skies burned with alien fire, and millions grieved for what was lost. Yet amid the destruction, humanity discovered something unexpected: unity. Borders that once divided nations no longer mattered. Enemies who had once stared at each other across battle lines now stood shoulder to shoulder, aiming their weapons toward the skies. For the first time in its history, Earth fought as one. In underground command bunkers, leaders of rival powers sat at the same table. Maps of shattered continents and burning skies glowed on the walls. Generals argued fiercely, presidents raised their voices, but all of it came from desperation to find a single path forward. The alien empire was stronger, faster, older, but they were not invincible. The damage humanity had already inflicted, though small, proved a truth none could ignore: the invaders could bleed. Hidden projects long thought impossible were dragged into the light. From dusty vaults, engineers rolled out railgun prototypes capable of firing slugs at speeds faster than sound. From secret hangars, swarms of unmanned drones took flight, each controlled by artificial minds built to learn and adapt in battle. Weapons once tested only on computer screens now became Earth's final hope. If we fail, one general said grimly, we will fail fighting. The first true counterstrike began at night over the Atlantic. A massive alien warship, its hull glowing like a second moon, descended to hunt what was left of the U.S. Eastern Fleet. Unknown to the invaders, humanity had prepared a trap. Submarines hidden beneath the dark waves rose silently, launching a storm of torpedoes not of ordinary design. These were experimental weapons, magnetic warheads that clung to the enemy's hull before detonating. The explosion lit the ocean in blinding fire, and for the first time, a leviathan of the Empire sank beneath human waters, split in two by a weapon built on desperation. The world held its breath. The news spread like wildfire: we destroyed one of their giants. Cheers erupted in ruined streets, soldiers wept with joy, and resistance fighters redoubled their courage. The Empire had learned to fear human unpredictability, and now it saw what that unpredictability could do. The loss of a single warship meant little to their vast fleet, but it cracked the illusion of their invincibility. The counterattacks grew bolder. In Asia, railguns hidden in mountain bunkers fired molten slugs that punched through alien shields, leaving holes large enough for conventional missiles to strike. In Europe, drone swarms flooded the skies, overwhelming alien patrols with sheer numbers until their ships fell burning into forests and cities. In Africa, soldiers used the terrain to their advantage, luring enemy troops into ambushes that ended in smoke and fire. Everywhere, humanity's creativity turned weakness into strength. But with each victory came a cost. The Empire's response was merciless. They unleashed heavier firepower, erasing entire districts to crush resistance. The planet killer, though not yet fired, loomed above like a silent threat. Human leaders knew every move had to count, for time was running out. In the ruins of London, a squad of resistance fighters uncovered something that changed the war. Buried within the wreckage of a downed alien scout ship, they found a fragment of its data core still alive. Scientists rushed it to a hidden lab, working without rest to decode it. When they succeeded, their eyes widened in shock. The files revealed more than tactical information. It showed weaknesses in the Empire's shields, hidden blind spots in their fleet formations, and most importantly, the location of their command vessel in orbit. The command vessel was the heart of the invasion. It coordinated every strike, every bombardment, every squadron across the globe. If it fell, the Empire's assault would stumble. The humans knew it was nearly impossible to breach its defenses, but impossible was a word Earth no longer respected. Plans formed quickly, bold and dangerous. A strike team would launch into orbit using retrofitted rockets, carrying the best of humanity's new weapons. Their mission was simple and suicidal: cut off the head of the serpent. Meanwhile, on the ground, the fight only grew fiercer. In South America, entire cities became battlefields of fire and steel. Resistance fighters tunneled beneath the streets, planting charges that erupted beneath alien walkers. In the Middle East, soldiers dragged ancient anti-aircraft guns from museums, somehow turning relics into deadly tools that scored hits on enemy craft. Even children became part of the resistance, serving as runners, scouts, and medics in places where adults had fallen. The world was burning, but it was also awakening. Among the Empire, unease spread like a shadow. Lower-ranking officers muttered that the humans were unlike any foe they had faced. They refused to break. They refused to surrender. The Supreme Commander silenced such talk with threats of execution, but even he could not ignore what he saw. Humanity was growing stronger with every battle. If the war dragged on, these fragile creatures might evolve into a danger greater than the Empire imagined. High above, the planet killer charged slowly, its energy coils glowing like the heart of a dying star. The Supreme Commander planned to use it soon, to erase Earth before its defiance could inspire others. Yet down below, humanity raced against the clock, gathering its final strength for one desperate strike. In a hidden hangar carved deep beneath the Rockies, the strike team prepared. Pilots strapped into blackened suits. Soldiers checked weapons designed for a mission no one had ever attempted. Engineers whispered prayers over the rockets, each built from fragments of fallen satellites and repurposed civilian shuttles. The countdown began. The world listened as transmissions went out. Humanity was not silent anymore. Across radios, broken televisions, and cracked speakers, a single message echoed: "This is Earth. We fight back. We fight for every life, every city, every voice they tried to silence. We fight until the last star burns out." And with that, the rockets launched into the night, blazing across the sky like spears of fire. Children pointed upward, soldiers raised their weapons in salute, and across the Empire's fleet, alarms blared as human ships broke through the atmosphere for the first time in war. The battle for Earth was no longer only on the ground. Humanity was coming for the stars. The night sky split open with fire as the human strike team's rockets roared upward. The flames trailed like spears of light across the black void, carrying with them the fragile hope of a dying planet. On the ground, millions watched with wide eyes. Some prayed, some wept, and some shouted until their throats broke, for they knew what those rockets meant. Humanity was not only defending Earth anymore, it was taking the fight into the enemy's domain. Inside the lead rocket, Captain Elias Grant gripped the armrests of his seat, feeling the crushing pull of acceleration. His suit was patched together from old designs and scavenged alien tech, but it held strong. Around him, the strike team sat in silence, their faces pale but determined. Each one had volunteered knowing the mission's truth. The chances of survival were almost zero. Yet not a single soldier had turned back. They all carried the same unspoken vow: better to die striking the heart of the invaders than live watching Earth burn. As the rockets pierced the upper atmosphere, the view changed. The blackness of space stretched out before them, endless and silent. Stars burned like frozen flames, and far above, the alien fleet glowed with terrible light. Hundreds of warships circled the planet, their hulls shimmering with energy, their weapons ready to erase entire cities with a single command. And in the center, larger than them all, loomed the command vessel, a fortress in orbit, wrapped in shields of power, the brain of the invasion. That was their target. The strike team's rockets were crude compared to alien craft, but human engineers had worked miracles. Shield disruptors stolen from fallen ships had been bolted onto the hulls. Navigation systems were patched together with half-broken satellites. Every part of the mission was improvised, and yet that very unpredictability gave the team an edge. The Empire could predict fleets, could predict armies, but it had never faced human desperation turned into technology. Alarms blared as alien sensors detected the rockets. Enemy interceptors launched from hidden bays, sleek and silver, cutting across the stars like blades. The human rockets split apart, releasing swarms of drones. They were small, fast, and unstable, but they swarmed the alien fighters like hornets, overwhelming their formation. Explosions lit the void. 2 human rockets were destroyed in the chaos, vanishing in a storm of fire, but the rest pushed onward, engines screaming against the pull of death. Captain Grant's voice broke the silence. "Focus on the command vessel. Ignore everything else." His tone was iron. Around him, his team checked weapons, railguns bolted to ship frames, EMP charges built from scavenged alien cores, and missiles programmed for suicide runs. None of it was perfect, but it was enough to make the Empire bleed. The command vessel grew larger in their view, a city-sized monster of steel and light. Shields shimmered across its surface, an unbroken wall of energy that had shrugged off every attack so far. The humans carried one weapon designed for this moment, a disruptor charge built from the stolen alien data core. It had to be placed directly on the shield generator. To do that, the team would need to land on the hull itself, fighting in open space. The rockets broke formation, diving through storms of plasma fire. One by one, more were lost, turning into fragments that tumbled silently across the stars. But the survivors pushed through, slamming their rockets against the vessel's shields. The impact rattled their bones, but the magnetic clamps engaged, pinning them to the enemy's skin. Humanity was now standing on the body of the beast. The strike team emerged into the void, magnetic boots gripping the alien metal. Around them, the endless black stretched forever. Alien turrets swiveled, spitting plasma fire across the surface. Grant's squad returned fire with railguns, their slugs tearing through metal, ripping apart defenses one by one. Sparks exploded around them, silent in the void but violent in sight. Every step was a battle. The soldiers fought across the curved hull, ducking behind jagged ridges of alien armor. Explosions tore the surface apart. Bodies spun into space, their tethers cut, drifting away into nothingness. Still, the survivors pressed forward, carrying the disruptor charge like a sacred flame. Finally, they reached the generator, a pulsing core of energy shielded by layers of alien plating. The air shimmered with power, vibrating through their bones. Grant's hands shook as he placed the device, his visor reflecting the blinding light. With one final push, he slammed it against the surface. The disruptor came alive, red lights flashing across its body. "Detonation in 60 seconds, the device announced in a harsh synthetic voice. The team scrambled back, firing wildly to cover the retreat. Alien troops in armored suits emerged from hatches, their weapons blazing. The humans fought like wolves, each second dragging out into eternity. Plasma beams sliced the darkness, shredding through suits, cutting through steel. Men and women fell, their final breaths vanishing into the void. Then the timer reached 0. The explosion did not sound, but it shook the universe in silence. The command vessel's shield flickered, then collapsed, its shimmering wall torn apart by the disruptor. For the first time, the heart of the Empire's invasion lay exposed. Human missiles screamed toward the opening. From Earth's surface, hidden silos fired their payloads, streaking upward through the sky. They reached the vessel and struck with devastating force. Flames engulfed the alien fortress, tearing through its core. Entire sections of the ship broke apart, scattering debris like meteors across the stars. The command vessel was crippled. The Empire's fleet staggered. Coordination faltered. Across the world, human resistance surged, seizing the moment. Alien patrols found themselves cut off, outmaneuvered, and destroyed. Cities long buried under smoke now erupted in cheers as word spread. The heart of the invasion had been pierced. But the victory came with a price. Only a handful of the strike team survived, their suits drifting in silence as the wreckage burned around them. Captain Grant's last transmission echoed across every human radio. "We showed them. We're not prey. We're hunters. Tell Earth. We made them bleed." On the alien flagship, the Supreme Commander stood in silence as reports flooded in. The humans had done the impossible. They had struck down his command vessel. Fury twisted his face, but beneath it, a shadow of doubt crept in. These fragile creatures had defied an empire. If they could do this, What else were they capable of? And far below, on Earth's shattered surface, humanity lifted its head. For the first time since the invasion began, they believed victory might not be a dream. But they also knew the Empire would return with vengeance, and the final battle was yet to come. The Empire returned with fury. The destruction of the command vessel had shaken them, but it had not broken their will. From the far reaches of the stars, reinforcements arrived, ships larger than cities, engines burning like dying suns. At their center came the planet killer, a weapon of myths and nightmares. It was said to be a machine that had ended worlds before Earth, a fortress designed not for conquest, but for annihilation. Its silhouette blotted out the stars, a moving shadow of death. On Earth, the people looked to the sky with fear in their hearts. Cities still burned from battles past, but everywhere, survivors had begun to rise from the ashes. Farmers had turned into soldiers, workers into engineers, children into messengers. Every living soul knew what was coming. The Empire was not here to conquer anymore, it was here to erase humanity from existence. Inside the underground war room, commanders studied flickering screens. The planet killer's weapon charged slowly, a sphere of light gathering at its core. Once released, it would strike with the force of a dying star, shattering the planet into dust. No shield, no bunker, no weapon could stop it, unless humanity struck first. General Hale stood at the center of the room, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Her face was gaunt from sleepless nights, her uniform scorched from battles long past. Yet her eyes burned with unyielding fire. "This is it," she said to her officers. "If we fail today, there is no tomorrow. Every ship, every missile, every soldier, everything we have left, goes into this fight." Across the ruined world, the call went out. Fighters hidden in canyons launched into the sky. Old satellites reactivated, their signals turned into weapons. Even the smallest towns offered what they could: homemade rockets, scavenged rifles, even information passed along ancient radio lines. Humanity, fractured and bleeding, united for one last strike. The battle began at dawn. The Empire's warships descended in formation, their weapons raining fire across continents. Yet the humans answered with chaos. Squadrons darted between the enemy lines, striking weak points, vanishing before counterfire. Kamikaze ships slammed into alien cruisers, tearing holes where none should exist. Cities turned their power grids into weapons, blasting electromagnetic storms that crippled enemy machines. For every human ship destroyed, another seemed to rise from the shadows. But the planet killer remained untouchable. Its shields glowed like a wall of eternity, its weapons tearing through Earth's defenses with surgical precision. Entire mountain ranges crumbled under its fire. Oceans boiled where its beams struck. Each passing minute brought the weapon closer to full charge, the sphere at its heart glowing brighter, hungrier. High above the clouds, the remnants of the strike team drifted in a patched-together vessel. Captain Grant had not survived, but those who had carried his final words with them. They looked down at their world, scarred yet unbroken, and knew what had to be done. They carried the last disruptor charge, rebuilt from fragments of alien cores, unstable, and almost impossible to control. But if it reached the planet killer's heart, it could break its shield. With engines screaming, the ship dove toward the monster. Alien interceptors swarmed to meet them, sleek and merciless. The humans fought back with everything they had, railguns blazing, missiles firing, drones scattering into the void. One by one, the crew fell, their voices fading into static. But the vessel did not stop. Its course was locked, its destiny written. On the ground, General Hale watched the screens with trembling hands. "They're going to ram it," she whispered. No one answered. They all knew what it meant. The human vessel broke through the last line of enemy fighters, its hull torn apart, fire trailing behind it. Inside, the survivors strapped themselves in, eyes fixed on the glowing core of the planet killer. In their final moments, there was no fear, only pride. They had carried humanity's hope into the stars. The impact was silent but blinding. The disruptor detonated with a surge of energy that ripped through the planet killer's shields. For the first time, its armor was exposed. Humanity's hidden weapons roared to life. From underground silos, from orbital stations, from the very oceans, missiles launched in unison. They streaked toward the wounded giant, 1,000 spears of light against the darkness. The first wave struck, tearing through its hull. The second wave followed, shattering its weapon systems. The third wave drilled deep into its core, igniting fires that spread like veins of destruction. The planet killer convulsed, its structure tearing apart. Fragments larger than cities broke away, tumbling into the void. And then, with one final scream of light, the monster exploded. The shockwave lit the sky brighter than dawn. Every human, from the deepest bunker to the highest mountain, saw it. The planet killer was gone. The Empire's fleet, leaderless and broken, scattered across the stars. Some ships tried to fight on, but their coordination collapsed. One by one, they were hunted down, destroyed, or forced to flee into the darkness. Silence followed. For the first time in years, the sky above Earth was free of enemy fire. Cities burned, lands lay in ruin, but the people stood beneath that sky and knew the truth: they had survived. In the war room, General Hale finally allowed herself to breathe. Tears carved lines through the dirt on her face. She whispered a single line, barely audible: "We are still here." Her words spread across radios, across satellites, across every surviving soul. They became the heartbeat of a reborn world. Far away, in the hidden corners of the galaxy, the Empire licked its wounds. Its leaders raged at the defeat, their pride shattered. Never before had prey fought back like predators. Never before had a single planet broken their will. Humanity had not only survived, it had shown the galaxy that it could not be erased. And somewhere, drifting among the stars, fragments of the strike team's vessel remained. Silent, frozen, yet eternal. A reminder that even the smallest spark of defiance could burn down an empire. Humanity had faced extinction, and won. But deep in the void, shadows still stirred. The galaxy had seen Earth's fury, and some whispered in fear, while others whispered in hunger. The war was over, but the story of mankind among the stars had only just begun.